Lan sat in her car for hours, staring at the wedding invitation. The date shone in gold ink, perfect, deliberate, false. Her reflection in the windshield looked unfamiliar, hollow. She had spent weeks preparing for a celebration she was never meant to attend. Every memory from the past year now felt like a lie. Her mother's distant smile, her father's polite silence, her brother's avoidance. They had built a wall around her and called it love. The realization stung more than the betrayal itself. She drove to her apartment, still in disbelief. The dress hung in her closet, soft fabric mocking her hope. On the table sat the crystal frame she'd chosen for her brother. Now it looked like a tombstone for everything she'd lost. Lan picked up her phone and scrolled through old messages. Nothing but empty words and forgotten birthdays. Her chest tightened with a strange calmness. Grief slowly turned into something sharper, cleaner. Maybe this was clarity, not pain. She remembered her childhood dinners, sitting at the far end of the table. Every laugh stopped when she spoke. Every idea she shared dismissed as too much, too serious, too intense. She had learned to shrink herself just to belong. But belonging had always been conditional. She realized now she had been auditioning for love that was never offered. Aunt Fuang's voice replayed in her head, trembling and ashamed. They thought it would be easier if you weren't there. Easier. As if her existence had been a burden. The words repeated until they lost meaning, leaving only numbness. Lan stood and opened the window, letting cold air sting her face. Her city moved outside, alive, indifferent, free. She envied that freedom more than anything. She thought of every favor, every quiet sacrifice she'd made for them. Paying bills they never acknowledged. Fixing problems they pretended to solve themselves. She had given them everything except her absence. Now they had finally taken that too. For the first time, she didn't cry. Instead, she walked to her desk and opened a notebook. On the first page, she wrote in sharp black ink, "No more excuses." Her handwriting shook, but the words held steady. She didn't know what came next. She only knew she would never beg for a place again. The night stretched long and heavy, yet she felt lighter. The kind of lightness that comes after letting something die. She picked up the shattered glass pieces one by one. Each fragment reflected a different version of her face. The hopeful girl. The forgotten daughter. The woman who finally saw the truth. When she was done, she threw the pieces away without hesitation. Her hands bled slightly, but she didn't flinch. Pain had lost its power. Lan turned off the lights and stood in the doorway. The silence no longer frightened her. It felt like space, wide, open, waiting. She whispered to herself, not as a promise, but as a decision. They wanted me gone. Fine, now I'll truly disappear on my own terms. Lan parked in front of her parents' house, the engine still running. The familiar driveway looked the same, but nothing felt familiar anymore. Through the window, she saw them laughing, glasses raised, music playing. Her brother stood near the fireplace, holding a wedding photo like a trophy. The sight twisted something inside her chest. She stepped out of the car and walked toward the door. Each step sounded louder than her heartbeat. When she entered, the laughter stopped instantly. Her mother froze, the smile still half-formed on her face. Her father stared at his drink as if it could hide him. Nam set down the photo, his smirk careless and sharp. "Lan," he said flatly, not surprise, not welcome, just annoyance. "The wedding was last weekend," she said, voice steady. "You sent me the wrong date on purpose." Nam shrugged, his tone almost amused. "I needed one perfect day without your drama." The words hit harder than any slap. Her mother sighed, adjusting her pearl necklace. "You know how you can be, Lan, always making things difficult." Her father remained silent, eyes fixed on his hands. Lan took a slow breath, forcing herself not to tremble. "I paid for the lake house repairs, every tax bill, every loan." Her mother waved a dismissive hand. "That's what family does, dear. You help because you can. Help, Lan repeated, her voice rising for the first time. I saved it from foreclosure, and you signed it to my company. The room shifted. Her father looked up, confusion flickering in his eyes. Nam laughed, the sound brittle. You're joking. Dad owns that house. Lan opened her purse and pulled out the deed. My name is the only one on it. The paper landed on the table with a soft thud. Her mother's face drained of color. You tricked us, she whispered, trembling with disbelief. No, Lan said calmly. You just never bothered to read. For the first time, her father stood up. His voice cracked with something like fear. You wouldn't really take it from us, would you? Lan looked at him, seeing not a parent but a man who had let her vanish. I'm only taking back what's mine, she said quietly. Nam's smirk vanished. You think money makes you better than us. It makes me free, she answered. Silence stretched heavy and endless. Her mother's eyes glistened, but no tears fell. You're making a mistake, she whispered. Lan smiled faintly. I made that mistake years ago, when I thought I needed your approval. She picked up her purse and turned toward the door. Behind her, Nam muttered something under his breath. She didn't care enough to listen. Outside, the air smelled different, sharp, clean, real. Lan paused at the car and looked back at the house. The lights still glowed warm through the windows, but she knew better. That glow wasn't home. It was a cage with curtains. She got in, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. For the first time, she didn't feel like running. She felt like arriving. Lan sat in her office, the morning light cutting through the blinds. The city moved outside, unaware of the quiet war inside her chest. She opened her laptop, fingers hovering above the keyboard. Her company records, bank statements, and legal files lined the screen. Every number was a reminder of how much she had given them. Every transaction, a piece of her trust they'd taken for granted. She called Hyan, her lawyer and old friend from university. I'm done funding their lives, Lan said. Her voice didn't shake this time. Hyan arrived an hour later, calm and composed, briefcase in hand. They went through the papers one by one. The lake house deed. The transfer agreements. The payments she'd made in silence. Hyan nodded slowly, her tone steady but firm. You have every right to claim what's yours. They signed it willingly. Lan exhaled, the air leaving her lungs like confession. I just want it to end. It will, Hyan said, but you have to mean it. Lan stared at the contract on her desk. The ink of her own signature from 3 years ago looked stronger than memory. She remembered that day clearly, the relief on her father's face. The false gratitude from her mother. The way Nam had said, you're saving the family again. Now she understood what that really meant. Saving them had always meant losing herself. Hyan drafted new documents, clean and final. Lan signed each page without hesitation. Her pen moved like a blade, cutting through years of silence. The sound of it was almost musical. When they were done, Hyan looked up. This also means you'll need to separate your accounts. I already have, Lan said. I started this morning. Hyan smiled faintly. Good, you're learning to protect yourself. They shared a quiet moment, the kind that feels like victory. After Hyan left, Lan sat alone, staring at her reflection in the dark screen. The woman looking back wasn't timid anymore. Her shoulders no longer bent inward. Her eyes didn't search for permission. She looked like someone who had survived something invisible. That evening, she packed boxes at home, her mother's china, old family photos. She placed them aside, not for keeping but for letting go. Each item carried a story, a lie, a version of herself that no longer existed. Her phone buzzed with missed calls from her mother, then Nam, then silence. She didn't answer any of them. Instead, she turned off her phone and lit a single candle. Its flame danced against the wall, fragile but unwavering. That was how she felt, fragile, but still standing. In the quiet, she whispered a truth she'd never dared to say. They can't take from me what I no longer give. Her voice was soft, but it carried power. The kind that grows only after everything else has burned. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Lan didn't flinch. Let the storm come, she had already weathered worse. Tomorrow, she would begin again, not as their daughter, but as herself. Lan's day began like any other, quiet and precise. She reviewed client proposals, answered emails, and avoided personal calls. But peace never lasts when ghosts still have your number. At noon, her assistant rushed in, pale and trembling. Your brother is in the lobby, she whispered. He's shouting your name. Lan's stomach tightened, but her face stayed calm. Security footage flashed on her phone, non-packing, furious, loud. People were staring. Cameras recorded everything. She pressed the intercom. Please document the incident, she told security. Follow standard protocol. Her voice was steady, detached, almost cold. 15 minutes later, her phone rang again. Ms. Lan, the situation has been contained, the guard said politely. Nam had been escorted out, still shouting about money and betrayal. The words didn't sting anymore. They sounded like echoes from a past life. As she hung up, her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but curiosity won. Lan, it's Huang, said a soft, shaking voice. Nam's wife. Lan said nothing, waiting. I saw what happened today, Huang continued. He told me lies about you. The pause stretched, filled with regret. He said you refused to help, that you were jealous. Her voice broke. But you didn't even know about the wedding, did you? Lan closed her eyes. The truth in that moment felt heavy and clean. No, she said quietly. I didn't. I'm sorry, Huang whispered. I should have known something was wrong. Lan looked out the window, the city below shimmering in late afternoon light. Don't apologize for believing someone you love, she said. I used to do that too. Huang laughed weakly, the sound breaking like glass. I thought I married a good man. I didn't realize he learned cruelty at home. The words lingered between them, raw and honest. Lan could almost see her, standing somewhere outside, small and uncertain. Leave before he turns that cruelty on you, Lan said softly. I'm thinking about it, Huang admitted. He's not the person I thought. That realization is freedom, Lan replied, even if it hurts. There was silence, then a quiet, thank you. After the call, Lan sat back, staring at the skyline. For the first time, she didn't feel alone in her pain. Someone else had seen the truth. Someone else had survived it. She picked up her pen and signed the final page of her restraining order. The ink spread smooth and final across the paper. When she looked at her signature, she didn't see defiance, she saw peace. Outside, rain began to fall, soft and rhythmic against the glass. Lan watched it blur the city lights into streaks of silver. Each drop washed something away. Fear, guilt, obligation. Her phone vibrated again, but she didn't look. This time, silence felt like victory. Let them call. Let them rage. She had nothing left to give them, and nothing left to lose. The next morning, Lan heard a knock at her office door. It was Aunt Fuang, holding a worn leather folder against her chest. I think you should see this, she said softly. Lan opened it, and the past unfolded in paper and ink. Emails, receipts, text messages, years of quiet manipulation. Her mother asking for money, for family emergencies. Her father promising to pay back once things stabilize. Nam joking that Lan owed them for being successful. Each word felt like a blade, disguised as gratitude. Lan flipped through pages until her hands began to shake. Aunt Fuang watched silently, her eyes full of regret. I kept them, she whispered. I knew one day you'd need proof. Lan's throat tightened. You knew what they were doing. I tried to stop it, the aunt said, but your mother wouldn't listen. Lan exhaled slowly, the air thick with years of betrayal. Her phone buzzed. It was Hyan, her lawyer. Lan told her about the folder, the documents, the evidence. Hyan's tone sharpened instantly. "This changes everything," she said. "We'll file it with the court today." By afternoon, the papers were scanned and sealed. Each file added weight to the truth she had carried alone for so long. When the ruling came, it was swift and final. The court granted her full ownership of the lake house. A restraining order followed, clear and unyielding. Her family was forbidden from approaching her home or office. Lan listened to the judge's voice, calm and absolute. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like release. That evening, she stood on the porch of the lake house. The air smelled of pine and rain, clean and cold. For the first time, the silence around her wasn't loneliness. It was peace. Days passed, and news spread quickly through their small circle. Her mother's friends stopped calling. Her father's business partners distanced themselves quietly. Nam's marriage cracked under the weight of gossip and debt. Huang moved back to her parents, leaving him behind. Lan didn't smile, didn't celebrate. She only watched from a distance, feeling nothing but a calm pity. Pain had turned into distance, and distance had turned into freedom. Her aunt called one evening, voice filled with relief. "They're finally facing consequences," she said. Lan nodded, though no one could see her. "I didn't need them punished," she said softly. "Just gone." The lake reflected the fatting light, still and endless. She ran her fingers along the railing, rough with age but steady. This was hers now, every plank, every quiet corner. No one could take it again. Her phone buzzed with another unknown number. She let it ring until the sound disappeared. Not answering was its own kind of power. Lan turned off the lights, leaving only the reflection of the moon. Her world was small now, but it was hers, unbroken, untaken enough. A year passed, quiet and golden. Lan woke each morning to sunlight spilling through the lake house windows. The air smelled of pine and new beginnings. Her days no longer revolved around survival. They revolved around choice. She worked as a creative strategist now, running her own small firm. Clients came to her for clarity, not approval. Her walls were lined with photographs she had taken herself. No family portraits, no ghosts. Just landscapes, sky and water, things that asked for nothing in return. Her phone rang often, but never with dread. The people who called her now were friends, not creditors of emotion. Aunt Fuang visited on Sundays with warm bread and laughter. Hyan dropped by after court, always with a bottle of wine. They would sit on the porch, the lake calm beneath the stars. Sometimes they spoke of the past, but mostly they didn't. Some stories lose power when you stop feeding them. One evening, a letter arrived in familiar handwriting. Her father's. The paper smelled faintly of cologne and thyme. She placed it on the table and stared at it for hours. Opening it felt like unlocking an old wound. Still, she unfolded it gently. The words were simple, almost hesitant. "I failed you. You deserved better." Lan read it twice, then folded it again. No tears came. No anger either. Just quiet understanding. Forgiveness wasn't owed. Peace was chosen. She placed the letter in a wooden box with the others. Not as a keepsake, but as closure. Outside, the evening wind stirred the trees. Her reflection in the window looked softer now, certain. She no longer searched for belonging, she built it. Later that night, her email pinged with a new message. A mentoring program for young women had accepted her offer to volunteer. She smiled, thinking of all the versions of herself that could have used a guide. The broken girl. The invisible daughter. The woman who finally learned to stay. She closed her laptop and stepped outside. The lake shimmered under the moonlight, steady and alive. For the first time, she wasn't haunted by what could have been. She was grateful for what was. In the distance, thunder rolled faintly across the water. Lan didn't retreat inside. She let the rain fall on her face, cool and clean. Each drop felt like renewal. Her past no longer chained her, it shaped her. When morning came, the air smelled of wet earth and peace. She brewed coffee, watching steam rise like prayer. The world was still imperfect, but she wasn't afraid of it anymore. Her phone buzzed with a message from a new client, polite and eager. She smiled, setting her cup down gently. "Lan speaking," she said, voice steady, calm, whole. And for once, it didn't feel like the beginning of something. It felt like arrival. A new envelope arrived one morning, pale and elegant. Her cousin's wedding invitation, written in soft gold ink. Lan traced the edges, feeling a faint echo of old memories. The words were warm this time, sincere and kind. "It wouldn't be the same without you," the note said. She smiled, gentle and distant all at once. The wedding date overlapped with her photography retreat in Maine. She checked her calendar and didn't hesitate. She wrote a reply in calm, careful handwriting. "Congratulations. I'll be away but wishing you joy." No guilt, no apology, just truth. She sealed the envelope and placed it by the door. Later, she brewed tea and watched sunlight scatter across the lake. The world outside shimmered with quiet possibility. She thought of the girl she used to be, waiting for permission to live. Now she simply lived. The house felt alive with laughter, friends, and peace. Not family by blood, but by choice. Lan lifted her cup and whispered to herself, almost a prayer. "I'm home.